What's going on, motorsports fans? This is Jared here with the beardedgaragistas. Always with me is my brother Brett.
How you doing?
And today we are going to go over all things endurance with our buddy Tyler. And he is back, and we can't wait. And we're going to bring him in right after we do our little intro music. What's going on, Tyler? Welcome back.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm stoked to have you back. We could do another one. The new endurance racing season is upon us. We if everyone obviously doesn't follow Instagram, but if you do, you know that Tyler and I went to the Sebring 12-hour a couple of months ago together. We did some photography. We got some awesome shots.
In short, Tyler is our endurance guru.
In short, Tyler's our endurance guru. Yes.
Yeah,
and we're going to go over pretty much all things endurance with Tyler, and then we're also going to go over the Sebring itself. We'll leave that towards the end because that's the sweet stuff, and that's what happened not most recent. We're going to talk most recent first.
Definitely not most recently.
No. Yeah, well, I mean, I was a little... I wasn't able to get onto the show, so I appreciate everybody waiting for me, and I apologize we haven't been around in a little while, but I am back. I'm good. I'm healthy. We're good to go. Let's talk Corvette. They got approved. Tyler, tell us about how they got approved and why, pretty much, because I think it's like the best thing in the world, thank God.
So basically what happened was Corvette basically told IMSA they couldn't make a 2022 GT3 Corvette, a full spec GT3 Corvette, and they asked for a waiver from IMSA to run a modified GTE C8R in the GTD Pro category, and they were accepted after IMSA talked to a bunch of other GT3 teams. They all came to an agreement to allow Corvette to run the car, and it looks like in the next few weeks we should hear a confirmation from GM that they will be running a GT3 modified C8R.
So I know you said they talked to some of the teams about it, and I would assume they would have had to, but this being a balance of power series, do you feel like this is going to give them an advantage or a disadvantage in any way?
So I believe it's a little bit of both. I think they have an advantage as the car is made to be a little faster than a GT3 car, but I also think that the balance of performance might hurt them a lot more because they're going to have to bring down the power. They're going to have to add weight with ABS and take out some of the electronics that the car is used to having. I think the car is going to be a little off balance for the first few races next season, just because it's not a design car. It's a kit that they're making for the new car. But I don't think it'll hurt them in the way that everybody thinks it will. BMW actually did this in 2016 with the M6 GT3. They asked IMSA if they could run them in GTLM when the Z4 was pretty much out of commission. They couldn't run that car with the new regulations for GTLM that year. So they asked IMSA to basically beef up their M6 to go into the GTLM class, and they weren't too successful, but you could see them, making progress with that car.
And I know I from my understanding, they're keeping the same driver lineup. So I wonder how the drivers are going to adjust to being, because they're in the same car, but it's going to feel completely different.
So I think, Nick Tandy, I have really no issues with him, and Alexander Sims. They have both run with Porsche and BMW GT3 factory teams before. They're probably going to be leaned on the most when it comes to developing the new GT3 C8R kind of mixture. The ones that I'm interested to see are Jordan Taylor, Antonio Garcia. They're older, they're veterans, but they haven't really run GT3 cars yet. They're used to GTE prototypes, the faster cars. I'm interested to see how they do in a slower but more driver-friendly car. I know Lawrence Vanthor was having some issues in the FAF Motorsports Porsche at Daytona, getting used to the ABS, getting used to braking later, and getting used to letting faster cars pass them. The GTLMs are some of the faster cars on track, and now you're going down to the slowest class on track. Even though there will be some power differences, it'll still be hard.
That's so crazy to think about that they're taking that big of a step back.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be nuts. Staying in the GT3 realm, I heard we have like new Porsche GT3 as well as some new kits for some new cars. When did you hear about that? Because I missed that one.
So Porsche announced this about 2 weeks after Sebring that they are in the process of building a 992 or 993, whichever one we're on right now, spec GT3 GT3 car. They have stopped selling their current GT3 car. They stopped building them. All the customers that have them right now have them. They're actually marking up the price, which I've heard is a big issue. Because they want to use the money to develop their new car for 2023.
Nice
Audi, they have.
Brett says, "How nice of them."
Audi has been. They've been talking about this for a few years. I think everybody kind of knows that the R8 is done. It's pretty much not in production anymore. But they are planning on using that car for as long as possible. So they will be making an Evo kit for the car next year to run in the 2022-2023 regulations. And then Lamborghini will be making a Evo 2.0, as you would call it, because they're already running Lamborghini GT3 Evos. They will be making a second Evo kit for their Huracan to run with the new regulations.
I can't wait to see that Lamborghini or what the Evo kit would be, because
it's going to be nuts.
Yeah, the regular Huracan and then to the Evo kit that's out now is a pretty cool change. So I wonder.
That car is getting so old, though. They need something new, man.
So's the R8.
Yeah.
Think about it, dude.
I'm not saying that either, bro.
R8 looks like a half an almond. That's what the R8 reminds me. I don't know why, but it's just like long and round. It reminds me of half an almond. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know where, when you said these cars are going to be ready for the 2022-2023 season, and I know that is Audi going to run that R8 for IMSA, or are they only going to run it overseas? How do you figure?
Audi will not be running them by the factory. They'll be selling them to customer teams. So it depends on how many teams run IMSA Audi cars.
In the
past,
point
we
jumped
haven't
ship,
had.
So
yeah, we haven't had many Audis lately. I know WRT Speedstar, they run an Audi at Daytona, but they don't run a full season. So it's kind of hard to say if we'll have any here, but it's going to be hard because nobody really buys Audis here. I've noticed a decline in Lamborghinis, almost no McLarens. There's a couple of cars that we don't have here that are running really successful in the overseas.
Right. Which is unfortunate because I would love to see some of those cars come over here. Aston Martin come over here and compete and see what they have and things like that. I think it would have made the competition better.
There are Aston Martins. We did get Harder Racing and
you're right.
We had TF Sport at Daytona.
Really?
But, give it time with McLaren too, because Zach Brown is freaking getting into every single class of racing there is on the globe.
He's a businessman. That's what he's going to do.
Yep.
Every single time you hear, he literally competes in nearly all of the top classes and series around the world.
Compass Racing runs a McLaren 720S GT3 in IMSA for the sprint races, but of course in Florida we don't have sprint races. Unless you're talking about last year, which we had two, and they ran the car here. I got to see him at Sebring. It was really cool. Yeah. That car is pretty cool to see in person.
Hell yeah.
But other than that, we won't be able to see that car unless somebody brings it over for the endurance event.
There you go. Well, as we know, Audi's one of the bigger names in racing. Let's talk another bigger name is Ferrari. And how we know they announced Hypercar. Have they started developing it? Do you know?
I believe they are working on it as we speak. They're looking at their Formula One data that they have, and they're going to try to use a lot of that. Yeah, I know. I said the exact same thing.
I was waiting for you to say that, bro.
I said the exact same thing when I saw that. But yeah, they're working on logistics right now. They're working on design. I don't think they have anything ready yet, like a wind tunnel test car or anything like that. But I do think they're in the design process of building the car and getting everything ready and figuring out the engine and the gearing and all that stuff. So.
And they're not the only ones. I heard you were talking before how Lamborghini is possibly well, not possibly. They've put in a ton of effort, money, resources into getting into hypercar as well. And
yeah,
you said,
they're looking at heavily invested in looking into LMDH. They're really, their motorsports head is looking really interested in LMDH as well as GT3 customer teams in the future.
What is it about hypercar and LMDH that like
money?
The FI no, but like they hit the nail on the head where you're getting all these manufacturers interested where they weren't. Like, what is it that?
How many cars are they going to field? I feel like it was exciting at first, and now it's like, dude, are they going to have to like have qualifiers and then people not actually qualify? Because there's a lot of teams, and if some of them field two cars, Jesus.
I know you have to be invited to Le Mans, so they keep the field down to like 60-something cars, but you have to be invited to go to that race. But back to what Brett was saying, the reason that teams are so interested in this is because LMP1 got to a point where it's so expensive to run a car, it's not worth it. The cars, you can't sell the cars. You can't use many things in the race car that you can develop for road cars. With hypercar, you have to build these cars for the road. You can use your own hybrid systems. You can use your own aero. You can use your own chassis as well. LMDH, on the other hand, you have a spec chassis, but that's also why teams are really interested in that, is because the costs are low.
Yeah.
It's much cheaper. So it appeals to every team now. LMP1 appealed to Toyota, Porsche, Audi, the big boys. Now it's appealing to Glickenhaus, these smaller companies that really want to race at Le Mans in the top class are coming back. Peugeot, Renault is running with Alpine. These smaller companies are coming back because it's interesting and it's appealing and it's cheaper and it works. While LMP1 did not work.
You said that there are 60 cars at Le Mans, and they're by invite, which is fine. But how? Again, to my question before was, are they going to have to do qualifiers and chop off 2 or 3 cars? Because let me ask you this: is Hyperclass a dual car setup? Are everybody having one vehicle? Do we know?
They can run however many they are regulated by IMS or by the FIA. I think the max amount of cars I've ever seen a team run is 4 in modern era, which is Ford ran 4 GTs in 2019 and Porsche ran 4 cars in 2019. So the way they do qualifiers for this is they invite the older teams, the Corvette, Porsche, Toyota, Audi, Porsche, the big names, the ones that have been there for the longest. They automatically get invitations. The ones that have to fight for it are the AM cars, the LMP2s. They have to race in European Le Mans Series. They have to race in the WEC.
They have to qualify.
And depending on where they land at the end of the season is if they get an invitation. Usually in the ELMS, the top 2 teams from each class get an invitation to Le Mans. So that's how they keep a lot of the teams down, but also keep the teams that have been there for a while.
I didn't know that. Man, you learn something new every day, boys.
I told you, he's our endurance guru, man.
He is. Kid knows, and I mean, he's a young man. I can't believe the kid knows so much. I know you brought up Glickenhaus, and they had some news. They're gonna end up missing Spa, the first race of the season. And
you mean they shot the bed? Yeah, they shot the bed.
All right, relax, bro. I was gonna say Brett was bringing up prior to the show that he believes it is. They said it was because of COVID, and Brett believes it is because they had the foot on the gas pedal a little too long and possibly ran out of a little bit of fuel and are trying to recoup their abilities. Am I right there, Brett?
Well, I'm just saying, if you have major manufacturers that announced interest in hypercar but did not say they were joining the first year, and then you got a little team like Glickenhaus going, nope, we're going to be there. I understand that they may have some shipment delays because of COVID, but that cannot possibly be the primary or main cause of what has caused all of their delays. Like that's just not possible. Nobody else is sitting there having that many issues, whether it's a big or little team. I think that if they were wise and they would have seen these major manufacturers looking into joining 2-3 years down the road, it might have been something that they should have done.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the bigger manufacturers joining 2-3 years down the road is because the way those type of companies, those large companies, the way they work, they have a forecasted plan, right? You got to think that large of a company, they're thinking 5, 10, 15 years out. So for them to, and yes, racing changes a lot here and there, and there's always these adaptations that they have to mold themselves to. But as a large company, it's not easy for them to go ahead and change their entire financial plan to be like, you know what, scrap this project. We're changing everything here, changing all, the way everything works, hiring, making sure there's a team. There's a lot of logistics that go into that for those big companies.
Then maybe just Glickenhaus just bit off more than they can chew with designing their own chassis. Like
that I can agree with.
That car looks beautiful. Yeah. The car looks beautiful, but good chance you bit off more than you could chew.
It's always hard to go into something that is brand new the first year. And I think they are taking the leap of faith because in the long run, running the first year of this class will help them in 2023. When all those other manufacturers come straight in and have no idea what they're doing, Glickenhaus will already have a year of experience and a year of building. So will Toyota, but Glickenhaus will follow Toyota into 2023 with experience and, a better car. I feel like Peugeot and Audi and Porsche and all those other teams that are coming in 2023, 2024, they're going to have a lot of issues while Glickenhaus and Toyota are sweeping them.
I just fear that it's another long boy with the Nissan where that car properly developed could have potentially done something unique. And just because of how they pushed it so hard that first year.
Another one that's similar to this is the Delta Wing. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that car, but that car was
awesome.
That car was amazing. Do
you think that car could have been as successful?
Speed. I think with a lot more time, it could have been.
Really?
But the regulations pushed it out way too early. It was only run for about 2 years and then it was done because the regulations changed so quickly and they didn't incorporate the Delta Wing. But
that car was
it had so much straight line speed, and it was okay in the corners, but it could make up in that straight line speed, and it was a really weird but cool looking car.
It was pretty. Yeah, it was a pretty cool looking car. If you haven't seen what the Delta Wing looks like, you should definitely go look it up.
And it's an insane story behind it too. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody knows, but crazy story about who came up with it and who ended up getting nuts.
So let's it was pretty good. Let's jump into Sebring. All right. And I know we're moving right along here, just like how we normally like to do our shows. We kind of like going through everything and being quick with it. And Sebring for me this year was a lot different. Last year was my first year. I went in November with Tyler again and Rob Woodham, which another great photographer, and I had a blast. This year, I thought I was really well prepared. I thought, all right, I wore my combat boots because I've ruck marched 20 miles in those bad boys and never had a problem. I wore nice, comfortable socks. I was good to go. Literally on the way into Sebring, I started getting blisters. Like I could feel it. It was rough. And I don't know what the hell happened, but I struggled through the day. I never gave up. I definitely never gave up.
You took a long nap about 8 hours in.
I did. I'm not going to lie to you.
Coming out now.
No, what was that? Turn 10? Is it turn 10? That little horseshoe?
Yeah, it was.
That little turn 10 horseshoe turn? I definitely conked out on, it's funny because I was worried about my camera that somebody's going to kind of take it, which nobody there probably would because there is a good brotherhood at Sebring, but I don't trust anybody. You know me. I'm from New York. So I rolled over and I was literally bear hugging my camera lens and I passed out right on the hill. It was great. Cars
That's like
going
when
by
we
and
were
everything.
kids. That was like when we were kids, and the first night that we got a new pair of skates or something, we freaking slept with those bad boys.
I'm saying, so it was definitely a good nap, but there was some chaos that went on at Sebring, and we're going to talk about that. The biggest thing that stands out for me is when we started the race, Tyler and I got together actually beforehand, and we kind of made a game plan, a little attack plan of where we wanted to go, places for sunrise, sunset as a photographer. And we went to turn 3 for the sunrise.
Turn 5.
Turn 5, sorry.
Turn 5.
We went to turn 5 for the sunrise. Are you sure it was turn 5?
Yeah, it was, because turn 3 was, we walked like, I don't know,
You're
200
right.
yards to turn 3.
6 is the bend, 7 is the hairpin.
Yeah.
You're right. It's turn 5. My apologies.
Don't question the guru.
I'm sorry. I am sorry. But we stood at the outside of turn 5, and it was a great idea. Great idea for outside of turn 5 for the sunrise. It was perfectly backlit. Everything was nice and clear. It was great. And then we moved over to turn 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that was,
we watched the start of the race there.
We watched the start of the race at turn 3. So we get to the start of the race, and we were talking about the camera guy on the tower. If you look at the outside of turn 3, there's a camera guy on this like 50-foot tower, and he's up there all by himself with this massive camera, and he's pretty cool looking. But I was like, man, I wish we can get up there to take photos and stuff. That'd be a hell of a vantage point. Little do we know, a couple hours later, we're sitting there eating lunch in the like the center of the track. Pretty much, they have this massive television screen if you haven't been out there, so you can get your food and pretty much sit in front of the TV screen and listen to the broadcast and watch the broadcast. And right where we were standing taking pictures, which I'm still kicking myself that we didn't get a picture of this, but how would we have ever known? The Mercedes pretty much, no, not the Mercedes, the Lamborghini, pretty much, I think it lost its brakes, and it tried to cut the apex of the turn.
Yeah, it had a brake failure and curb topped the curb and basically just punted the Mercedes off. But you can't really blame the Lamborghini.
Failure.
He did all he could.
No, you can't. That was a nasty, nasty failure.
Yeah.
It was great. I'm not going to lie. It literally hopped just enough to punt the Mercedes at literal full speed. The reason why
Did you see how much it moved the wall?
That's what I'm saying.
So it was like a 30-minute caution.
The reason why I talked about the guy on the tower is it happened right in front of him. And I'm thinking to myself right before that, man, it would be really cool to get up on that tower. And bro, they moved the wall probably, I would say, a good 6 to 7 feet.
Yeah.
And that's on the other side of the tire barrier. It was awesome.
Yeah, but you know what's even better about that is when you watch the incident, it's from that man's camera, and it didn't flinch an inch.
No.
Yeah.
The guy's
that
stone,
man watched that
veins.
stuff coming right at him and just got to get the shot.
Ice in his veins. But yeah, I mean, I say it was awesome because you know me, I always thrill the crashes. However, it was kind of scary because it was a really good hit. You could tell that both drivers, when they got out of it, they were both kind of shaky. So let's move into something like somebody new to the racing game. And there were a lot of new pilots this year in IMSA, but one of them, big name, 7-time world champion, Jimmie Johnson. And the man is struggling.
Yeah.
We all know what it is. He's used to the stock car racing. Now he's in something like, a prototype. He's also in IndyCar. He's struggling in IndyCar too. We'll talk about that.
I was just about to say, not doing too much better there.
Yeah, we got to talk about the Formula One race. We got to talk about the IndyCar race. We got to talk about a lot of races, Brett and I, but we will get those episodes out to you. But yeah, let's talk about Jimmie Johnson and the prototype. Spins it in practice, right? And pretty much destroys the car.
In qualifying. Yep. And
then spun it again coming out of turn 17, pretty much almost in the beginning of the race, which, don't get me wrong, that's if you're going to spin a car in an endurance race, in the beginning is probably the best time to do it because you have 40 million years to catch up.
And turn 17 is a very difficult turn. If nobody's ever seen turn 17, you've never seen a car take flight like you have at turn 17.
And then
the bumps are pretty gnarly there.
They say it all about turn 17, but when we were outside of turn 1 taking photos, they bumped just as much. It's
they
crazy.
They are going flat out around turn 1, and it's intense. They always drop a tire there. You'll see dust flying up.
Yep. Because turn 17 is at the end of a long straight, yes, but it's a longer turn, and by the time you really get into the heart of the bumps, you're at the slowest point of the apex.
Well, I think we're about to get to this, but that was where the Whelan and the Mustang sampling car had their big incident.
Right.
As the car came out of pit lane, I think the Whelan car came around and just full speed curb hopped right into the Mustang sampling car.
Yeah, and spun and broke around.
And that's a fast corner. That's one of the fastest corners around Sebring, and you're going flat out and you hit somebody there. You're lucky if you even get a piece of that car back.
I feel like Whelan Engineering really kind of got the short end of the stick because they crashed coming out of the pits. They got pinched at the wall and going into turn 17. Right at the end of the straight, they were the car that got pinched between, I can't remember what it was, and it lopped off the whole front end. They had to go into the pits and change that.
It was the Chip Ganassi car in the wall.
Right.
The Chip Ganassi car came beside it, and as the battle got heated, the Chip Ganassi car came in for the inside line, and the Whelan car stuck its nose in, and it got sandwiched in between the wall. Luckily, it didn't seem like it had a lot of damage, just a nose piece they put back on the car, which those cars are pretty quick with that. But they definitely had a rough race.
And they had a rough Daytona too. I mean, they have a fast car because in qualifying they're always first or second.
They always have a fast car, but they always seem to miss the mark every single time. They always qualify very high, and something always happens, or they're off pace during the race, but they're great in qualifying or great in practice, horrible in qualifying. You can never win with this team, but when they do win, they win in dominant fashion.
Right.
I will say that.
So it's really tough to watch. Like, it's tough to watch a fast team, a fast car struggle because you try not to have expectations. We all know this is motorsport. Anything can happen. But when you have a fast car, a fast team, great drivers, great crew, you have an expectation at some limit. You have, I mean, everyone right now as a Formula One driver can say, I know where Mercedes is going to end up. I know where Red Bull is going to end up. Could you imagine a team like Mercedes just literally having the worst luck through the first half of the year? And you're just like, they can't do anything right, no matter what they do. They have the dominant car, dominant team, and just they had a puncture at the wrong time. Anything. It's really tough to watch that happen with those kind of cars.
Yeah, is it always if it's happening over and over again though? How much of it is actually luck, bad luck, whatever? I mean, it gets to a point where if it happens too often and it's reliability, too much of a cavalier attitude, that gets them into these situations.
I think Daytona was definitely a lot of Chase Elliott. I know that was
and
nobody really wants to say it, but he was the killer for that car. But at Daytona, I just feel like they went a little too aggressive. They tried a little bit too hard in some battles that they should not have stuck their nose into. I do think the pit exit incident was a little bit of luck or bad luck because of the fact that the car hopped over a bump. But other than that, I mean, every other incident was just them, getting too close to somebody, going too fast, doing something wrong that a driver of that profession should not do.
That's really tough. Let's talk about another rookie driver, James, and his teammate, which actually was my favorite for Sebring, one of my favorite drivers to watch. First off, Kevin Magnussen in that Chip Ganassi car is dumb fast. He's really exciting. He takes his chances. Guys, I love watching the guy drive. And his teammate, the person who was my favorite driver for the Sebring race was Van der Zand. The guy, I feel like he's driving with a chip on his shoulder. He didn't get picked up by Wayne Taylor Racing. He didn't get to race with all his buddies. And I really feel like he might think like, hey, we might not win every race. We might not win the championship. But when I'm in that car, I'm going to be a force to be reckoned with. And you can definitely tell it when he's on the track.
He does definitely have a chip on his shoulder. You can tell when he's battling the Konica Minolta car that he's going a little bit more aggressive. He's always putting in the fastest lap times. If you ever look at a timing screen, Van der Zander's always at the top. He's always at the top. I think Kevin Magnussen adapted a lot better than people thought he would to a prototype. Considering how Jimmy Johnson's doing.
He's a chaotic driver, and then you just gave him closed wheel.
But
well, another thing that
listen, you're talking though, like, and you mentioned Jimmy Johnson, and this is what our good friend Ken Bear says: you start open wheel, you can then go to closed wheel, easy. If you're going closed wheel first and then trying to make the transition to open wheel, it's going to be exceptionally harder. So you got, an amazing Kevin Magnussen coming in, who everybody knows is fast, and everybody reputation, for years of getting them elbows out. I didn't question for a second that he was going to come into IMSA and perform at a high level. So that's why it doesn't surprise me that Jimmy Johnson is having some of the things that he's having over at IndyCar, where Grosjean from F1 comes into IndyCar and does, finishes top rookie in the top 10. Kevin Magnussen goes into closed wheel
with air quotes.
Rookie. IndyCar.
The guy's got some of the most experience on the entire circuit.
All right, but even open wheel, it's so different.
He raced open wheel. He was in Formula One.
But IndyCar is light years away from Formula One.
He hasn't done an oval track, bud. I mean, these are street.
Well, he's not doing it.
He's not doing it. Is my point. He's doing, and I mean, like, maybe he should take a year off, give his family a break. But
right,
I think you're out arguing. You got to think he's doing the same kind of circuit courses. Now, put him on an oval and see if he's the top rookie. I don't know about that. I think racing on an oval, especially at that speed, really takes that skill. But you took at somebody like Jimmy Johnson, who is known for, stock car racing 200 miles an hour, 3 inches somebody off of somebody's bumper, 3 inches somebody to your right, 3 inches behind you. That takes a whole different type of concentration. And I really feel like it might take Jimmy Johnson a year, and I don't know how long he plans to be in this type of racing, whether it be IndyCar or IMSA. I feel like with enough practice, he's that type of somebody that could probably mold to it fairly well. Will I say he's going to go out there and be the fastest? No. But will I say he's going to be a solid second, possibly decent third driver? Yeah, possibly.
So what I wanted to point out was that a lot of IndyCar drivers seem to do very well in IMSA. You have Simon Pagenaud, Scott Dixon. Mm-hmm. They're all very good Indy drivers, and they come into IMSA and they do very well. And what I wanted to point out with Kevin Magnussen is that his dad was with Corvette Racing since the start. He's been around IMSA and closed wheel cars all of his life until he went to Formula One and did his own thing. His father's always had an influence on him, which is why I think he's doing so well so quickly. As well as, like Brett said, it's easier to come from open wheel to closed wheel than it is from closed wheel to open wheel, that kind of thing. But Kevin Magnussen has been around these kinds of cars all of his life. He's driven them. I know he has before.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think of that.
IndyCar drivers are actually very good when it comes to coming into IMSA prototypes and doing very well.
I feel like almost the speed is there, but there's now like this sense of, I don't know if it's a sense of security, but like you're in a car at that point. And I know these guys understand the risk of what they're doing, but when your head is blowing around and the wind is going over your helmet and you have to stay aerodynamic and it's all flying around, that's got to be difficult. To now when you're in a bubble and there's no wind and you could actually open up the visor to your helmet and kind of just got free air, breathe free air, stuff like that. I know it's still, tight in there, but there's got to be some level of comfort that they get from something like that. So, I mean, you can understand that. And another big thing that everyone really felt, and I think everyone's going to feel next year with Porsche, is the absence of Ferrari at Sebring. So, as everyone knows, WeatherTech jumped to a Porsche, and Ferrari, there was no Ferrari race car. Now, everyone will all say that there'll probably always be a Porsche on the grid, even though Porsche pulled out. And that's just because of their customer-backed teams. But you don't see that so much with Ferrari, especially here in the States, which I don't know why, because they have their own. Oh, no, they changed the Ferrari challenge, right? Do they still have a Ferrari challenge here? or is that overseas?
They do. It's a mixture of both. I know Cooper McNeil was racing a lot in the States in his Ferrari Challenge last year. But all the Ferrari Challenge races I've seen this year were overseas. So I think they do a mixture of both, but they're still run under IMSA, which is kind of odd because IMSA is usually United States, maybe Canada sometimes, not usually Europe. But I can see why they do that. But yeah, they're still running them in the States.
I feel like when teams or manufacturers start to have a challenge of their own and they have to pretty much manufacture for all those teams, I feel like they don't really care so much to be in one or two off situations in a series like, for IMSA's championship. I feel like they're like, we have a challenge where obviously that's where they're making all their money. They're not going to make money off of one team at the top, at IMSA. They have their own series. So I feel like at teams like that, especially in Porsche, you'll see it too. I think that people gravitate more towards Porsche because recently they've had a winning way. And we're going to talk about that in 1 second. But I feel like, people are going to, if Ferrari was, on the other end of that and Ferrari was winning right before everybody kind of pulled out with the COVID and stuff like that, I feel like Ferraris would sell better than Porsches. And that's just the way teams are.
One thing about Ferrari is that they haven't had a presence in IMSA since 2016. In 2016, Rizzi Competizione, who runs IMSA Ferraris in GTLM, they pulled out a full season running. Since then, they usually run every endurance race, but now I've only seen them at Daytona. They were supposed to be at Sebring this year like usual. They weren't. But Ferrari has not had a customer, like a regular customer team running their cars in IMSA for a long time. It's been a long time. They were talking about possible AF Corsa coming back or SMP Racing running one. Never came to, fruition because of COVID and sponsorships, but Ferrari has not had an IMSA presence, I feel like, in about 5 years.
It's tough. It's disappointing for a team like and a name like Ferrari to not be in that. But you also got to remember they can't be in every form of racing. You know what I'm saying? They're getting into hypercar. They can't jump into every form of racing and be good to go. So we're going to move on to the end of the Sebring race. There were 3 huge things that we want to talk about. The first one is going to be Tyler's most sore subject of the night. If you don't know, Tyler is a huge.
Just check the comments on.
He's a huge Corvette fan.
Just check the comments on Jared's posts, and you'll see why. You see what he's talking about.
Well, we all know BMW came to bang this year. They did it in Daytona. They were, the beginning of their Daytona race was a shit show. They literally just checked everybody. And at the end of the Sebring race, I feel like they kind of got a little impatient and just pretty much punted Corvette out of the way. Blatant. Blatant. Couldn't have been more blatant.
The words I said to my TV at the end of that race should not be said.
He gave a lot of warning, a lot of flashes.
Yes, I saw that. Coming. Jordan Taylor made a lot of videos about that.
It's so funny. Every single one of them was hysterical.
Jordan Taylor's videos got me going. If you haven't seen it, follow Jordan Taylor on Instagram, and his videos of getting flashed at the end of the race. Hilarious, because BMW did it for like 10 minutes straight. He wore the fuck out of that knob. I swear to God. That button is just trashed. It's like one of those keys that like you rub the fucking letter F off of and because you use it so much. That wasn't English. That must be what that button looks like. But I guess in that he gave fair warning. At that time, this year I'm going to talk about photography for 1 second. I know Brett doesn't like when I do this, but I have to. The track I think it was either the track or IMSA really fucked us on purpose this year, and I feel like it was on purpose. If everyone doesn't know, coming into turn 7 is the hotel, the hairpin. No.
Yes. The hotel's is right outside of 7.
Right. Turn
by the
7
main
is
road.
where everybody, when they come around Big Bend at 6 and they slam on the brakes going into 7, that is the prime spot right around dusk, going into nighttime, to get a great shot of the car slowing down and the rotors glowing red hot. And you get these awesome streak shots. They're nice panning shots. And this year, I was shocked, but they had a bulldozer parked there. So a full bulldozer, which I thought that was kind of dangerous. Like, yeah, you know, if two cars are coming into turn 7, slamming on the brakes, and one gets into another one, it could push it into the dozer. So that kind of was a weird to me. I didn't know why they did that. They had a dozer there, and then they had the ambulance as well. And they were offset. So they were parked. One was parked this, regular parked, and then, like, say the ambulance was pulled up a little bit. So it took almost the size of a trailer. Like a good sized trailer was taken up by them, and you couldn't take any photographs because it was so close to the turn that by the time the car came past the ambulance, you didn't have time to pick it up, track it, and put it into the turn. So, funny story is the woman from the ambulance gets out, the driver, and she goes to throw something away in the trash can in front of me. And I'm standing next to 50 other photographers that are sitting there.
No, I'd say maybe 100 at that point.
And
that turn becomes really popular around nighttime.
Right. So I look at the driver of the ambulance and I'm, hey, is there a way that you could possibly just move the ambulance back a little bit so you at least line up with the bulldozer and you guys aren't taking up so much real estate? Because that would at least give us a little bit more time to focus on the car before it gets into the turn. And she said, verbatim, I was told I am not allowed to do that. Now, that to me means somebody's pulling the little puppet strings and trying to screw the little photographers that don't have media badges. Now, I know that's a little conspiracy theory, but that's what I believe. Let's get back into, I'm sorry. Let's get back into the punting. Let's get back into the punting.
The better subject.
So BMW flashing Corvette. At this time, Tyler and I kind of gave up with the photography. It was very dark, late at night. We were exhausted. We went home. I dropped him off. So I was watching the race on my phone, possibly, maybe, allegedly, while I was driving. It was playing in the background. And Tyler was at home, and I remember watching the Corvette get dumped and texting Tyler. Literally before I could pick the phone up to text Tyler, he texted me, "Those sons of bitches." He was so mad. But yeah, so BMW straight punted the Corvette, spun them around, destroyed the BMW's race as well. And who comes out on top?
Porsche.
A Porsche Privateer, baby. A Porsche Privateer wins GTLM. Spanks the show. They were right there. You can't say that they didn't deserve it, because if they weren't where they were at the time of that accident, they wouldn't have beaten BMW.
They had a very, very good race for a Privateer team. They had a horrible Daytona, but they showed up for Sebring. But I want to say, if there was any other team other than Corvette, which is my favorite team, of course, if I wanted to see any other team win, it would have to be that WeatherTech Porsche.
Yeah,
those guys work so hard. They really brought back Porsche. Everybody thought Porsche was done. WeatherTech came in, bought a Porsche, is running it in GTLM where they should be, and are doing fantastic. I'm so happy that they won and not BMW, because if they did, I would be really mad.
But we're incredibly smart enough to sit back and let the BMW and the Corvette take themselves out.
Yes,
and that's how they won.
You also got to
think it wasn't being aggressive and getting up into them and saying, "Oh, maybe I can overtake them as they battle." No, he went back, saw the flashing lights, and went, "This is going to happen."
Well, another thing about that WeatherTech car is it's not exactly a Privateer. It is a Privateer owned car, but that driver lineup is Porsche factory drivers. Yeah. They were all in the 911, 912 car last year, except for Cooper McNeil, which is a fantastic driver anyways. He used to run Porsches a few years ago in the WEC at Le Mans in the GTE AM class, and now he moved up to the Pro class with Porsche this year, and they're going to be running at Le Mans as well.
Yeah, but the Porsche lineup is only half of that car. The other half of that car was a WeatherTech Ferrari GTD car last year. So you got to think, they made the jump.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, the WeatherTech Ferrari changes from a slow car to now a GTLM and they're winning races. They're competitive against a team that you got to admit, before this season started, I think we all felt that Corvette was going to run away with this season. I think we all felt that. So the fact that BMW were there to at least give them the run, Porsche's there to win a race, I feel like that's huge.
It's definitely a good sign for them, meaning that they'll probably have more success this season at some point. I don't think they're going to be running every single race. I know they're not running Detroit, but Detroit is not a points race for GTLM. It's more of a showcase, which is just going to be Corvette. W, of course, is not running sprint races, but I do see WeatherTech having some more actual, like, them controlling the race pace at the end of the season, maybe around Petit Le Mans, they could do something really nice.
Sure.
But I definitely think they're a good team to watch. I think they're a bunch of hardworking guys that are running with the big boys, and they're doing pretty good.
And finally, we need to talk about Mustang sampling. And a team that I took a lot of photos of last year, watched them struggle, have been watching them struggle for 2 years now without a win. Finally, with the French connection, all French driver lineup, they go ahead and they come out, even in the big crash coming out of the pits with Whelen Engineering, which I'm pretty sure shocked everybody. Mustang sampling did not have an easy race. They had their moments. And
they were hit by everybody and their mother.
And they battled their way back to take the overall win at Sebring, which is it's a huge win. If that's one of the wins you're going to get, Daytona, Sebring, those are huge wins. They're not little simple wins. And to come out and go ahead and take the win at Sebring was fantastic. My hat's off to them. I feel like they raced a great race.
Nobody saw this coming because of the fact that they haven't won a race in a few years. I don't think they won any races last year. They've been in the top 3, top 5 recently, but they didn't win anything last year. They came to Sebring. They didn't qualify very well. They had that huge crash with Whelen, and all of a sudden, within 5 minutes left of the race, they're in the front. They're controlling the pack. In my opinion, if I didn't see a Cadillac winning, I thought it was going to be the Mazda. The Mazda controlled the race very well, but in the long run, I guess it just didn't work out for them. Only having one car probably hurt them. But
having one car definitely hurt them. But my thing is, I really want to see Magnussen and Van der Zandt and Chip Ganassi racing.
I would say with certainty that they will win at some point this season.
Are you guaranteeing 100%. It?
I'm probably going to guarantee it. They will win a race.
Fast, man. They're so fast. But how many races is Dixon going to do?
They're so consistent as well. Like, if it's not the driver that's the problem, it's always something wrong with the car. Daytona was 2 punctures. It might have been Van der Zander's fault, but I mean, he couldn't do anything.
He was driving the wheels off that thing.
Oh my goodness!
He had to push that car to get to the front, but it's always the car, I feel like, with them, and not the driver. I feel like that car is it's got bad luck, but it's got so much speed.
Yeah, I will say that the drivers very rarely put that thing on the grass. They don't really take too much of the body work off. I feel like they're consistently fast. So yeah, you make a good point where it's most likely, based on the car itself and possibly the pit stops and strategy and things like that. So
do we know who's racing if Dixon's not available?
Dixon, I'm sure Dixon's going to be there as long as there's no IndyCar race at the same time.
Yeah. Then they usually don't run Dixon unless it's an endurance race, which we only have two left. We have Watkins Glen, the 6 hours of the Glen, and we have Petit Le Mans at the end of the season.
Right.
So he won't be there for many races, but
he's got to
Van der
concentrate
Zande and Magnussen.
He's got to concentrate on the IndyCar season, because we're going to come out with an episode about IndyCar and Formula One. And Tyler, if you would like to join us about that, you are more than welcome, sir. But we can talk about how I feel like, even though Dixon has finished, I think he finished third. I feel like it's hard to live up to, what was it, like 3, 4, 5 straight wins last year in the beginning of the season, and 3 straight wins in the beginning of the season last year. So I feel like you have to look at Dixon's year this year and him finishing third place and go, you know what?
He did not finish third place, actually.
Who finished third?
Jimmy Johnson, Kayumi Kobayashi, and Simon Pagenaud.
No. I meant an IndyCar.
Yeah,
in the most recent IndyCar race, I believe he finished third behind Will Power and Alex Palou. So
Which is his teammate, so that's an in-team rivalry right there.
But what I'm saying is that I feel like third place is if you saw third place without understanding what Dixon did last year in IndyCar, you could say, you know what, third place, that's a really respectable finish to start the season. When you go and you win 3 races to start the season last year, you get to a point where you're like, you know what, third place, why didn't he win? You know, he's a prior champion. He's a previous champion. He should probably go out and win that race. So I really thought that, you know, you have to understand the big picture and not jump on Scott Dixon's third place as being a failure, because honestly, it's not. So I want to.
Chip Ganassi said that Palau was faster than Dixon in practice, and that stunned the shit out of him.
Well, I mean, he pulled it out in the race, and it all looked real good. But we are going to work on an IndyCar episode for you. We are going to work on a Formula One episode, probably either tomorrow night or the next night, bro. But Tyler, I really want to appreciate you. I want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you. And Tyler is going to be our co-host for all our endurance racing. So as the races, the guru, as Brett calls him. So as the endurance races go on, as the rest of the year goes on, as every endurance news goes on, we're going to bring him in to go ahead and talk about the endurance racing at that part of the show. So I really want to, man, I did it twice. I want to thank you for coming on the show, my guy. Oh, we lost him? Well, if there was any time to lose him, would be right about now. If you can follow him on Tyler Duane Photo on Instagram. Yes. You said
I don't
AA.
think you can hear us.
Nope.
I can't hear you. My internet's going out. We're going to end the show right now. Tyler Duane Photo on Instagram. Go check him out. I really appreciate everybody coming in, joining in, listening. Go ahead and interact with us as best you can on all of our platforms, sites, podcasts, YouTube, all that good stuff. And we will see you soon. Thank you for joining us. Peace.
Peace.